want to ask the three of you about another dilemma that faces entrepreneurs, as they move through their journeys. And let me start by asking you, Mr. Kotak, the art of sacrifice. How important is it for entrepreneurs to learn the art of sacrifice? Everybody wants to do everything. You want to be a car maker, you want to be a television maker, you also want to run an airline, you also want to have a bank. But how important is it to learn the art of sacrifice, and how important is specialization today?
I think, first of all, do what you're passionate about, and don't do something because somebody else has been successful at. I have many stories about neighbors beginning to invest money because somebody else in his neighborhood has made money. That's the wrong way of looking at it. Be passionate about what you do, and if you're passionate about something, you'll be able to define what you think you really care for. Now, in the context of our business, which is financial services, we had this big issue about specialization versus doing everything. And we'd have defined our business model as concentrated India, but diversified financial services. Therefore, we recognize that it would be tougher for us to be a global vertical and an expert in investment banking globally. So why compete with a Goldman Sachs when you can redefine your model to be concentrated India, diversified financial? So we are in banking, life insurance, asset management, securities, investment banking, but
in India.
In India. So you have to define what you think you can be good at and passionate about. And the other part about the whole business is how scalable is it?
Yeah.
And I see our opportunity as almost infinite.
Mr. Clozel, how do you look at the art of sacrifice?
I think it's a very important question, because in a company, you have to make choices, you have to stop sometimes some projects. And in an innovation-based company such as our company, we have tried to make it the more rational. You need, in order to make this choice, to have the best basis. And for us, science is maybe it is the only way to evaluate projects. There is nothing more demotivating for innovators, for scientists, to know that they can work for 10 years on a project and this project will be stopped without good reason. So what we try to do is to think a lot how to evaluate this project on a very scientific base, and also to be very transparent, which means that the best is when the scientist or the innovator himself come to the conclusion that he should stop this project. And that, I think, is key for an innovation-based company.
Right. Mr. Murthy?
Well, my friend C.K. Prahalad, who is no more, was a very famous management guru. He said, he introduced the concept of core competence, as most of you know. Core competence is all about certain skills, certain areas of expertise that you are very comfortable with, that you have competitive advantage over your competitors, that you can do it in a jiffy. Therefore, I would say that every entrepreneur must first recognize his or her core competence and then focus on those opportunities that leverage that core competence. If you did that, then you would have lots of joy doing those things, you will have rewards, and you will make this a better world. So therefore, the moral of the story is identify your core competence and do things that leverage your core competence.
Okay, we talked about the art of sacrifice. I now want to talk about the art of detachment. And I'm going to start by asking you, Mr. Murthy, because it's unusual, not just in India, but across the globe, that a founder walks away from a company that he founded. You, along with 6 other individuals, co-founded Infosys Technologies over 30 years ago with borrowed money from your wife. But you decided to walk away from the company. There's also an unwritten rule that you have that none of the founders' children will be part of the business in any form or fashion. Can you explain to us the reason behind that, and can you explain to us what it took for you to arrive, as I would call it, at this level of detachment from a company that you founded?
Transforming this world is all about institutionalization of ideals, of vision, of dreams, of objectives. If you want to institutionalize those ideas, those dreams and those visions, then you will have to realize that you have to detach yourself from that institution when a time comes where there is a blurring of distinction between the institution and yourself. That is the time when people equate you with the institution. That is the time for you to walk away from it, because institution is much larger than any individual. And therefore, I think you will have to bring the best people into those positions and keep the ideals of the institution burning. So that's the reason, that's the time when you have to walk out from your own baby. It's almost like giving away your daughter in marriage, because she finds somebody young and smart with whom she has a great dream, and then the parents, conduct the affair, and then they have a wonderful wedding, and then the bitter goodbye. There's a certain amount of sadness, but at the same time there's a certain amount of joy, because this girl is going to lead a great life with somebody who is smarter and younger and all of that. That's the spirit in which you will have to take that detachment.
How important is it for corporates today to be socially responsible? And when I say socially responsible, obviously, it's hygiene stuff to expect that companies will treat their employees well, will treat their suppliers well, will be equitable, will be fair, will be transparent, will not follow any practices of corruption and so on and so forth. But beyond that, for instance, governments like the government of India are now putting the onus on organizations to spend a certain percentage of their profits on things like corporate social responsibility, whether it's education or healthcare. Do you believe that corporate social responsibility ought to be made mandatory, or do you believe that it should be left to an individual organization to decide how and what they use their money for?
I'll answer it in a slightly different way. Yesterday, when I had the conversation with Maria, I said, leadership is all about simplification. Leaders communicate a very complex concept in very simple words because they want the entire organization to understand it and own it. Therefore, my belief is that leaders have to have a simple talisman in handling all these numerous tasks that you talked about. And that is, as far as I'm concerned, it's very simple. I ask a question: will this decision of mine, will this action of mine enhance respect for my company and for myself? That's all there is to it. Then you don't have to worry, should I be involved in corporate social responsibility? Should I be nice to the employees? Should I not cheat customers? Should I not cheat investors? They all come as a derivative of your belief that you want to earn more and more respect from every one of your actions. So as long as you ask such simple questions and you have simple ideas, then everything will fall into place.
We've got our final minute, so I'm going to get wrap-up comments from each one of you. Mr. Murthy, at the end of an almost 4-decade-long entrepreneurial journey, how would you like to be remembered? What would your legacy like to be?
I'd like to be remembered as a fair person, somebody who used data and facts to judge everything, somebody who is not biased, somebody who followed the golden rule that do unto others what you want them to do unto you. That's what I...
Thank you very much. Mr. Clozel, what would you like to be remembered for? What would your legacy be?
I would like that I am not really too much remembered, but that there is after that a company which is in very good shape and which will grow. That's what I would like.
Mr. Kotak.
A small 1-minute story. When I started my career and I made my first trip to the US, I was completely stunned to see Wall Street, see a JP Morgan, a Goldman Sachs, a Morgan Stanley, Merrill Lynch, and I was a 3-member company from India. And I said, when is it that we from India will build a company of global quality, global scale and global size, which the world will look up to. And that's what I'm passionate to create.
Well, congratulations and thank you very much, gentlemen, for joining us here this morning and sharing your lessons and insights. Many, many thanks for joining us here this morning. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.